I'm so happy you're here. I can't believe it. I can't believe this is the end of our series. It's literally been 5 weeks since we started this. And I was thinking today, and I was like, you know how you end a workshop, or you have like, it's the end of a semester of college and you're taking your final, or you're doing the review of the professor. There's no review needed. However, I take your opinions, but you start to, hi Mara, hi Catch Me 3, thanks for joining me. Hi Gora. So when you start to take your review and you think about like everything you've learned in the semester, right? And like how much time you invested, or the books you have to buy. Or I know when I was in college, like I always bought the books, and then when it was time to return it to the bookstore, the value still wasn't there. Well, I can promise you, and I'm confident in, there is value in what we've been doing, and the wisdom, and what's been shared, not only from me, but what you shared as you commented. Hi Stella, how are you? Thanks for joining. So this all started out of the year beginning and February, and I really just wanted to talk about love, and I really had a heart to talk to people about love. How is it exemplified in your life? Hi Janice, how are you? Thanks for joining me. How is love exemplified in your life, and how you can walk out love every day. So if you're joining me, I see a lot of new people joining me. I just want to introduce myself if you haven't been part of our last 4 weeks. My name is Kamilah Tibbitts. I am a business owner of over 20 years in the home and gift industry. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, but above all, I just have a heart for community, and I love to encourage people and inspire people to walk out their fullness. And so that's a bit about me. Definitely tell me where you're from. Tell me about yourself. Hi, Maladonna. Thank you for joining us. So I'm just going to do a quick review of where we've been going with this, right? So this is our series called Tents and Tabernacles. And what we did was we said, hey, this is the beginning of the year, and we're just going to put some stakes in the ground, right? Like we're going to put some stakes in the ground and build a covering and build a tent for everything that we have declared, for our resolutions, for everything we want to accomplish in 2018. Knowing that once we put those stakes in the ground and we have that covering, that we can walk out all that we are called to do. And what I'm called to do in my life as a business owner, as a speaker, may not be what you're called to do in your life as a stylist, as a makeup artist, as a professor, as a social media expert. Whatever that is on your life, these truths are universal. So hi Appel, thanks for joining. So these are the stakes that we've gone through and we've laid down firmly in the ground over these past weeks. So the first stake that we did was identity, right? And so we talked about identity and what that means. That's what we started with. Identity means standing firm in who you are. We talked about being unapologetic about who you are, and knowing that what you carry changes things, and people knowing you for that. We also talked about how if there is some identity from your past or things that you were carrying, how to recreate and walk in truly who you're called to be and make that turnaround. Not so much as like a PR campaign, but first of all, changing the narrative that you're telling yourself. Thanks, Janice, thanks. It is a close concept. It's not mine. It's just a universal truth. But yeah, so not doing like a PR campaign, but really like change the narrative and the language that you tell yourself. And when you're confident in your identity, pushing that out into other people. Second thing we talked about voice. We had some funny moments. I talked about my voice, how it goes up and down, how, when I call my daughter in for school, they're like, are you the mom? I'm like, I'm the mom. So we talked about your voice and carrying your voice and owning your voice, and how your voice is not just how it sounds, but your voice is the influence that you have. Hi Cheryl, thanks for joining us again. So that was our second stake we put in the ground. We put voice in the ground, recognition. Your voice has influence. So we didn't just think, I have a voice and my voice is to sing, or I have a voice and my voice is for my podcast. We're talking about what your voice carries in every environment that you're in every sphere of influence that you're in. And the third stakes that we put in the ground, which was one of my favorites, was power and authority. It's like, yeah, Kamilah, like you're kind of feisty and aggressive, but you know what? I love to share on this because I've learned how to manage that, and I've learned that that fire that's in me, how to fuel it, right? And we talked about the campfire, and we talked about how we keep the fire going and the things that we do so it doesn't dull. And we talked about the influence that we can have based on the fire. And you know, the biggest thing we talked about that I got a lot of messages from you about, hi, call me D, is firing the flame of the gift that's inside you, right? Because it was very strategic how I laid out each week, because in order to fire the flame of the gift inside you, you already had to lay a hold of who you are. You already had to lay a hold of your voice. So when I said, hey, it's time to fire the flame of the gift that you have inside of you, you had something to build up on, right? And so that's what we're doing. We're building on some key points. So again, identity was our first stake. Then we put voice in the stake of your voice in the ground, and then we did promise. And this week we're going to and then we did power. So identity, voice, power, and today we're going to talk about promise. And this is awesome. And again, like, this is laid out in such a clear way, because the promise is not based in a lot of effort. And you guys, if you've had confirmations of what we've been walking through, or if you've had confirmation or examples in your life of how you've used your voice or how your identity and how people saw you change, like, through this series, definitely share this on here or direct message me, because that just encourages me, and it encourages the community and the tribe that we're building. So, okay, promise. Now, when we get to promise, this stake is something that we lay in the ground as a declaration and as more of a physical acknowledgement. But this promise, this stake, promise comes from a place of expectation, right? So remember when you were a kid and you were like, Mommy, promise me that after school we're gonna go get a Slurpee. I'm dating myself, right? Because who drinks Slurpees now, right? Mommy, promise me after school, like, we're gonna go get frozen yogurt, or promise me after school when the ice cream truck goes by that I can go and get a popsicle. Again, dating myself, because I don't even think they have ice cream trucks anymore. But the promise is, the person's promising you something and you're expectant of that, right? And so even in the marketplace, if you're called to the marketplace and you're in business and there's a transaction that's being taken place, once we decide, like, this is what I'm going to give, this is what you're going to give, it's sealed with a handshake, right? And like, that's how in our culture we seal an agreement. And I can tell you that that's in the marketplace, and that's how we do things. But this stake that we're putting in the ground, this is a promise of what you are to receive. And this is a promise of, remember we talked last week about set your mind on things above? That even what's going on around me, like, even though I may not understand, I set my mind on things above and stay focused on that. So this promise is coming not from you. The stake's in the ground, and the stake of promise is there, but there's no effort for you. You've done enough, right? You've done your part. You've participated in your own identity and who you are. You've said, this is who I am. You said, this is how I carry my voice when I'm in the room or out the room. You said, this is the power that I carry, and this is how I maintain that. And the promise is just there for you to receive. It's a place of expectancy. And the reason why this is important is because this is where you understand your greater purpose. Right? This is where, as you start to walk these things out, how you started the year and what you declared over yourself and what your wants are, High New Mindset, thanks for joining us, may be different, because you're going to know your greater purpose throughout this. So I would ask you, write down your greater purpose, end of February, beginning of March 2018. Kamilah, this is my greater purpose. Or tell me, like, just write it up here. We're live, so it's interactive. And then we're going to come back and look at that at the end of the year if your greater purpose has changed or if there was a pivot. You had an idea, but as you walked out the year, like, things changed for you. And so one of the things that I'm going to share with you one of the truths that really helped me, that I go back to a lot, is that, I'm going to read this to you. You may have many ideas or plans for your life, but only the designs of your greater purpose will succeed in the end. And I translate that into very layman's terms. It's a spiritual declaration that I have in my faith, but I'm going to read it again to you because I wanted for you to receive it in a way that was very clear for you. because I may hear it different than how you hear it, and that's okay. So again, what I read was, you may have ideas and plans for your life, but only designs of a greater purpose, setting your thoughts on things above, will succeed in the end. And that greater purpose will come through that stake in the ground. So there's no effort here. So why did I not start out with promise, right? If I started this series out and I said, there's a promise over your life, set your thoughts on things above, there is no effort, just receive what is ever being given to you, there wouldn't be a partnership, and there wouldn't be an accountability of you have to do your part. Because no matter what I see in you, no matter what I speak over you, no matter the declarations that I have about your life, no matter what your parents say of what your major should be, and you're going to go to grad school, and this is how your life is going to be outlined. No matter what anyone says, if you don't decide to partner in your spirit with what you believe you are and walk that out on your own, the promise will never come. So I really wanted us to have some action items to start, to kind of build some muscles to start to talk about the promise. And I just want to, a lot of you ask me, direct message me, like, why Tents and Tabernacles? Like, what, why was that the name of the series? Hello, Vasu, how are you? And so when we talk about a tent or we talk about a tabernacle, like my kids played soccer, and you think of those white canvas tents that are portable that you take to soccer games, you see them everywhere. But what a tent is it's a portable shelter made of cloth with one or more poles. So what we're building is a portable shelter with 4 poles, and those are 4 stakes. And so, and what I did in this point, because I really wanted you to understand the meaning and the power behind the series, which is a tent, a tabernacle. I didn't give you a definition of it. I just looked it up in the thesaurus, like the thesaurus was my best friend in college, and I just found words that translated where you can understand a tent, right? And so when I talk about identity, when I talk about authority, if that's something that is new for you, or that's a word that just isn't in your everyday, or you're thinking that's a word that's more for a faith community, or that sounds very like, whoa, new agey, or I only hear that when I go to yoga, whatever that is, I would encourage you, whatever word I say, thesaurus.com, if people still use books, look it up in a thesaurus and find a transferable word that's going to work for you. Okay. So again, a tent, portable shelter made of cloth. You have stakes in the ground. Do you see where we're going? And in the thesaurus, what it said was, it's a big top. No jokes, right? Because some of you are like, yeah, it's a big top because my life is like a circus. Like, no, like that's not what we mean by that's not what we mean by big top. So again, the thesaurus said, a tent can be a big top, it can be a canvas, it can be a pavilion, and it can be a tabernacle. That, right? That's what the thesaurus said. So then I thought, okay, well, let me look up and share with the community what the thesaurus said about tabernacle. And it said, it's a habitation. It's a sanctuary. It's a shelter. And it's a tent. That's not me, you guys. Like that tabernacle, look it up. Habitation, sanctuary, shelter, tent. And that's what we're building. That's what we're building, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Mama Sarah. Thanks for joining. We're building the Tents and the Tabernacle series was about establishing a shelter, a pavilion, a canvas, a tent. So that as you go out into the world and as you start to establish and walk out what you're called to be in, you have that tent, you have that tabernacle, you have that shelter. I talked to you guys a lot in the beginning about how my mom recently passed away, and my mom grew up in the same house, lived in the same house that she grew up in. That my mom passed away when she was 68, and the house my grandfather built. He built additions on the house, and that's what you did back in the day, right? Like they had 5 kids, like he built additions on the house, and there were different rooms, and So I inherited the house, right? The house is down south. I'm from San Diego, so it's down south. It's a different community than I live in today. And so I inherited the house, and I was deciding whether I was going to sell the house or whether I was going to rent the house out. And I thought, hey, let me just have an inspector come in, right? And so if you've sold a house, the inspector comes in. Thanks for joining us, Bunny29. The inspector comes in and he goes through every area of the house, right? He's checking the plumbing. He checks the roof. He checks the floor. He's checking the doorknobs. He checks the windowsills. Like, he's checking every area of the house. It took him about an hour and a half. Hello, how are you? And this was like an hour and a half. And at the end of the inspection, he puts on this full white suit, the pants, the hat, just like he's like going in, like as the kids say. And he's like, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to go check the foundation. And so I didn't think anything of it. I was already like super emotional. So I was like, okay, great. And so this is what he said in that moment of when I decided not to sell that property. He came back and he said, for a house, at 1940, I asked my husband, when the house was built. He said, for a house this old, he goes, the one thing that I can tell of what a house is standing on is the foundation. He goes, and this house is standing on good foundation. And so I inherited this home, right? But I thought, okay, great, it's a good foundation. And there's some of you today that you've inherited some things, right? Whatever that looks like you've inherited property, you've inherited a position from another person at a company. You may feel like you've even inherited some family dynamics that maybe aren't even your own. But in that moment of when you inherit something, you inherit all of it. And then you get to decide how you're going to walk that out. So we're in the process of remodeling the house, right? Everyone's like, you guys are the new Chip and Joanna. I'm like, no, we're not. And so we're walking that out, and I got a call yesterday. And everyone has that neighbor, that they're always there. They're very aware. When you go out of town, you know they're looking out for what's best. And so we have a neighbor that's been there I'm 42 years old. So she's been there over 40 years, and her name is Miss Minifield. And she called me, and I thought, oh no, like something with the workers, or there's something that is not right as we remodel. And we're kind of at the end where we're doing the landscaping. And she says, hey, I know you guys are changing the yard. I'm like, yes, we are. She goes, I have to tell you something. I said, what? She goes, there are gophers. Now, I've been going to this home for 42 years of my life with my grandma, receiving everything that this home stands for, all the legacy that is in it. I never knew about the gophers. And she said, there are gophers. And so before you decide how you're going to landscape, you really need to think about that, because they're deep in the ground. And she goes, and whatever you plant in the yard, make sure you tell the landscaper that he needs to put wire around whatever's planted. And she goes, I just had to call you. She goes, I just had to call you and tell you that because I couldn't sleep at night. It would be a waste of your money if you didn't know that in advance. And I said, okay. And as I thought about the end of this series, I thought, I inherited something, and it was a good foundation, but I needed community, right? Come on. I needed a community to tell me about the gophers, right? I needed a community to tell me about the areas that come up and the little gophers that eat away that I can't see. And for a lot of you, you guys have there's some little gophers that are going to come up, right? There's some little things that are come up as you walk out. Like you're going to walk this out, and you guys are going to be powerhouses in every sphere: identity, voice, power. But there will be some gophers that will come up. They may come up inside you, inside your spirit, of some old stuff that you need to let go. And they may come up with people coming at you and kind of challenging you. And so what I would say is, put a wire around the gophers, okay? When those things come up and you're going to see them, you're going to say, you know what? Before I plant here, I need to put a wire around that. Hey, Kennedy, thanks for joining. So again, I want to share that with you. You're inheriting something. This is big, but put a wire around the gophers in your life. Either get rid of them, Some of them you're not going to get rid of immediately because maybe it's the area that you need to grow in, right? But put a wire around it. So this is where we're at. And we have the shelter built, right? We have the tent, we have the tabernacle, it's established, and the storms are going to come. And a good friend of mine told me, courage is not in the absence of a storm, it is in the midst of a storm. And because this tent and this tabernacle that we're building is portable, as you walk out and establish ground, as you walk out and establish territory of where you're going to have a portable shelter, not to hide. This is not a shelter that you're going to go into and hide. You're going to have this tabernacle, this pavilion, this tent, this covering. You're going to have it to go back and be refueled. And the stake that you're going to always know that is there, the stake that will always be your touchstone is the promise. Because there is a promise over your life. There is a promise of what you're walking out. And now we're just in a posture to receive. We're in a posture to receive because you've done the work. You're doing the work. The expectation that you have and the excitement that you have, even as I talk about it, is good. It's bubbling, right? That's that power, and it's bubbling inside you. And so take a stand, rest, right? Because now it's done. You're done. So this is what we're going to do. There's two things that I would encourage you to do as we end this series. I want you to rest in the promise. I want you to rest in the promise that there is a calling on your life. There is an equipping that is happening because of who you are and the arenas that you've been called into. And then I want you to stand firm. I want you to stand firm because you've established the stakes in the ground. You can stand firm because you are fully seen and fully known. And the reason why you can do that is because you're standing because you know your identity. You know who you are. You're standing firm because you know your voice. You know the influence that you have. And you're standing firm because you know your power. And so this has just been a blessing to me. This series has done so much for me, and it's launched me in ways you can't imagine. And it hasn't launched me because of what's inside of me. It's launched me because of the tribe that we're building. So I know and I am confident that we're going to continue to have tabernacles and tents. We're going to continue to establish ground in 2018, and the best is yet to come. So this series will probably turn into an ebook, and I'll definitely let you know how you can stay informed of my speaking schedule and what it's going to look like, because sometimes you just have to walk things out. When I started this series 5 weeks ago, I had no idea that it was going to end the way it did, but it's so good. And it's so good because you guys join me every day. So next week I am starting a new series. You know, we're going into spring. I'll definitely give you more information on it, probably in my stories that I do throughout the week. But we're going to talk about spring, about seasons changing, about rebirth, about resurrection, about the new man that you're becoming. So thank you again for joining me on this series, Tents and Tabernacles. My name is Kamilah Tibbitts. I'm so encouraged by you. I'm encouraged by the tribe that we're building, and the best is yet to come. Take care, guys. Bye.